here today with Matt Tremblay, Senior Vice President, Global Offshore for the American Bureau of Shipping, ABS. ABS convened a meeting in New Orleans today on the offshore energy market. And Matt, first and foremost, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Greg. Happy to be here.
I think you can speak better than I that there is incredible interest in offshore wind and its impact on the entirety of the U.S. maritime market. When you look at the offshore wind opportunity today, what do you see?
There's a lot of opportunities and a lot of growth available in the market that we're going to experience as an industry over the next 4 years, 5 years, 10 years. The question isn't so much how much growth is there going to be, but how fast is that growth going to happen, and how much of the capacity that's there available in the existing market is there, both on the design side, the construction side, the operation side of this business within the United States to support that growth along a timeline that is going to support the investors' desire for these projects to be commissioned over the next decade.
Okay. Timelines and challenges obviously were a main point of discussion here today. So when you look at the challenges faced to getting this market up to speed, up to scale, what do you see today as the main challenges?
The biggest challenge around the industry is the investment decisions around the vessels that are going to be supporting the installation and operations of offshore wind in the United States. Where for installation vessels, for SOVs, we're looking at investments of $300 million, $100 million that are very, very hard to make on spec. You don't want to take a lot of risk in an emerging market with investment numbers that high. And having an investment decision and a contract that's going to support that investment to get that investment from the banks and the financial support a project investment like this would need is very difficult when we're still in the infancy stages of many of these bigger projects getting sanctioned. And as the first few projects get going and as the industry and the installation offshore ramps up, I think this problem will slowly work itself out. But at this stage right now, you're looking at vessels that have 24, 36-month construction periods that are very hard to look at as an investment opportunity on spec. And getting those first few contracts going, I think, is going to be one of the biggest hurdles for us to overcome to really start seeing the exponential growth in the market.
Yeah, I think one of the great points brought up today is it's not just the construction cycle, but also the design cycle, the contracting cycle, and it starts to move out quite rapidly.
That's true. That 30, 35 month construction period for a high spec installation vessel. That you have to consider a couple of months of negotiation on contracts on both ends. Give yourself an extra half a year for some more engineering. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden you're looking more than 4 years out when you're trying to plan ahead for when am I going to need this asset.
Okay. Well, obviously today we're still in the throes of an offshore oil and gas downturn, and there are a lot of vessels that are sitting idle. When you look at the market today, obviously vessel owners want their ships working. When you look at the potential for offshore wind, is there a possibility to take some of those idle vessels and convert them for this use, or do you see this strictly as a new build market?
Looking at the needs of the wind farm installation and support vessels, and what those vessels are built like and designed like in Europe and throughout the rest of the world, and the projects we're seeing in the U.S. While we would like to see there an opportunity to get some greater utilization out of these OSVs that have been somewhat stranded for the last few years, it really is likely that most of these vessels are going to have to be specifically designed, new built vessels to support the unique aspects, technical aspects of the function they're going to have to serve. So, while I more than anybody, I'd love to see a lot of these boats going back to work, there's not a lot of opportunity to retrofit a lot of the existing tonnage in the U.S. to serve this emerging market.
Okay. Obviously, there's a lot of trends today We're at a transcendent time in maritime history with a lot of the new emission regulations, the digitalization on ships. When you look at the new emerging technology sweeping in the maritime industry, how does this play into the growth that you see in the offshore wind sector?
This is a place where we are able to take advantage of the things that we're learning in the offshore sector, specifically, the OSV market, and apply a lot of that existing or newly emerging technology to the vessels that are going to be operating in offshore wind. One example is hybrid power systems that can be used. That we've seen a lot of success in the OSV market over the last few years in the installation of battery and hybrid power systems to increase the efficiency of vessels operating in the Gulf of Mexico and around the world. As well, the application of new digital technologies, opportunities to utilize tools like digital twin for asset integrity management, as well to support other operating characteristics as far as vessel optimization. I think the possibilities that we see starting to come out of the offshore industry on the MODUs, on the FPSOs, even as well as on the OSVs. There's a lot of those similar types of technologies that we could apply to these same vessels to take a marginally smaller capex and result in hopefully a pretty good OPEX return over the next 20 years of the vessel life.
I've been doing this for 28 years, and I think I've seen class become ever more a remit of technical expertise for vessel owners. I'm assuming that you're getting a lot of questions today from vessel owners that want to be involved in this market. Can you share with us some of the main questions that you were receiving?
Yeah, class really has changed from when I started in class 23 years ago. Class was an entity that provided a class certificate, and that was really it. And these days, class has really become a resource of technical expertise and advisory services around OPEX optimization, around design optimization, around risk management. And a lot of the questions that we're getting in that area from the wind market are tied to many of those similar things that we work with all the maritime and offshore industry on. So areas such as design optimization opportunities within the drivetrain and the power system, to hull design optimization, to the conceptual approval of new technologies as they're utilized either because they've been invented or because they're being moved from one industry to another, for example, into the maritime industry where they haven't been before. We have crane technologies, we have walk-to-work gangways, we have different digital tools that are now being installed on board assets that they really haven't had a lot of experience on prior to the last 10 years. And class is being relied upon to verify that these new technologies, as they're implemented more and more quickly, we're identifying what the risks are related to those new technologies being used in new ways, and that we're meeting the mission of classification of helping keep these assets safe and these operators safe, these workers safe offshore, as well as protecting the environment that they work in.
The growth potential for this market will also have an impact on ABS itself.
Sure.
Can you share with me how ABS is changing or envisioning changing to meet this growing demand?
ABS as an organization is a large globally distributed company that has the ability to take on new activities like this all the time. But the things that we're doing around preparing the company for the growth of the wind market, especially in the U.S. and areas outside of Europe, where it's previously been, is of course a number of internal training activities, but as well writing new rules, guidance notes, developing technology guides, and working in joint industry projects, joint development projects to help support the industry with our technical expertise as the larger industry, the designers, the shipyards, the owners, et cetera, are building their own technology portfolios. Making sure that the breadth of technical knowledge that ABS has is available through a number of different methods to the industry, such as joint projects, such as writing new rules and guides, and making sure that we are making our expertise available, as well as continuing to do our own internal R&D and investing back into ABS and making sure that we are always the most technically capable organization to support the development of the industry.
As a ship owner interested in the offshore wind market, what should I be doing to prepare today?
I mean, there's a number of activities, but firstly, it's preparing yourself for, what's different in operating in this OCS, this Outer Continental Shelf environment, than you would be in, a normal transportation type of marine business environment. As well, start having those conversations very early with your regulators, class, the Coast Guard, or whatever other flag state you're dealing with, to make sure that you have a true understanding of what the regulatory challenges are that may be different from what you're used to. And then as well, starting to work out what your own, business risk profile is in the first place as you're moving into an emerging industry, making sure that you're prepared and fully understand, what the risks are in this industry versus in the wind industry and the wind support industry, as opposed to where you may have been operating in, for example, an OSV or a crew boat market in the past.
Obviously, Matt, safety is job one for anybody working in the energy market,
especially
and
ABS.
Especially,
right.
Well, it particularly it's always been the highest regard in the offshore oil and gas
right.
market. In looking at this new emerging market, can you just give an overview of the importance of safety, particularly for perhaps a new group of workers that's perhaps not as used to working in the offshore environment?
Right, especially in the market of the U.S. OCS has had a strong safety culture built over the last 50 years, and it's ABS's mission to support that. But in bringing a new type of industry to the U.S. offshore market, we bring a new group of offshore workers to the market as well, that are a little bit different than the guys that have been working on the oil rigs, working on the OSVs and crew boats. The technicians that are working on these offshore wind turbines are very specialized technical technicians, and they're not necessarily guys who grew up in the oil patch that are used to working in the oil patch environment. So, a lot of the vessels and support vessels that are being built today are being built with that in mind. And looking at what's unique to these individuals, what unique training they may have, what unique training they may need, and what unique aspects of the vessel design may need to be added, as opposed to something that may be in a more simple crew boat. We may be able to or may need to put a little more design consideration into the accommodations areas, the working areas on board these SOVs, as opposed to the OSVs that we've been used to managing in the United States.
Well, Matt, again, I appreciate your time. Very busy, and
Thanks
it's always good to visit with you.
It's great to see you again, too.
Okay.